Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast, an ongoing series of conversations and considerations to help people understand and embrace their own unique creativity for fulfilling lives and brilliant careers. My name is Ben Talon. I'm an illustrator and author, and I bring 16 years of creative industry experience working with the New York Times, The Guardian, the Premier League, and more. And I invite designers, artists, psychologists, scientists, coaches, athletes, sensitivity experts, and all kinds of thought leaders to help us broaden our knowledge of creativity. Creativity is a fundamental pillar of human happiness, a vital ingredient in the solutions to our problems, but so often misunderstood. The show is supported by founding sponsor and B Corp, Illustration X. Take a look at their stunning range of illustrators and animators at illustrationx.com. If you like the music for the show, it's by Dirty Freud, who you can listen to now on Spotify and all good music streaming services. Today I'm talking about brand. Brand not in the sense of design templates, colour guidelines or anything tangible, any specific discipline. I'm talking about the artist, the life of an artist. Whatever you're doing with your creativity, you are your brand, the way you move, your frustrations, your flow, what pisses you off and what delights you, what gets you out of bed in the morning. Every single bit of it is your brand, and the more of it you can channel into the way you create, the likelier you're going to be successful and live a fulfilling life. This comes off the back of a personal revelation. I'm discussing it and breaking it down today. This is the Creative Condition. How are you doing, guys? I hope you're well. My name is Ben Talon. This is the Creative Condition. How are you doing? I hope you're good. It's strange times out there. It has been so for a while. Maybe it's because I'm 41 now and I just overthink, deep think, procrastinate, ruminate. I'm trying to change up my practice so I'm interacting with people more so I can be a part of things and feel a little bit less isolated. I'll be honest with you, cards on the table. Since I've started up this creative coaching practice, it's forced me, as someone who's going out there calling themselves a teacher, to look in the mirror and to recognise the things that I'm advising other people to do, that I need to do them also. And do you know what? I'll be honest, it's the best way to do the best for my coaching clients. Because if I'm living it, if I'm feeling it and I'm seeing the positivity of certain changes, I know it works. And it comes from a pure place, because what I didn't want to do when I started up this whole extension of the creative condition into a teaching and coaching practice was go out there and base everything on theory. Just combing the internet, because, well, let's face it, you've got ChatGPT for that these days, so there's no need. What I wanted to bring was a lived, felt, observed, proven human experience, whether it's my own experiences or brilliant examples that I've come across through books, through conversation, through going out there and seeing it for myself, large scale, small scale, individual scale. It all counts. So that's where you find me. And that's what I wanted to do today. So I had a recent kind of crash is a bit strong. It wasn't a crash. It was a dip. I'm talking about dip in respect of personal confidence, imposter syndrome, particularly with this new coaching practice, because it's brand new in the sense that I am taking it to market as a formed thing, but it's really not brand new when I consider that this is a life's work. This is how I've always behaved, that I've been helping people for as long as I can remember, because I take great pleasure in doing so. I was raised by my parents to consider others at all times, not to judge, whether it was the person who is screaming at the sky in town, shouting at clouds, I think the expression is, or just the person next door who needs a bit of, might just need a one-to-one and a cup of tea. So I've got nurture on my side for that. So I'm an empath. I'm very sensitive. I feel the world's troubles quite heavily if I don't get thought processes in place that support that. I'm completely highly sensitive. I know a lot of you guys that listen to this show are also. Just a little nod to a previous episode on that topic. If you really want to get into the high sensitivity, go and listen to episode 200 part 1 with the wonderful Jen Granneman, author of Sensitive. It's a beautiful book. I recommend the book too. It's going to be on the Creative Condition reading list, which is a part of the new website I'm working on at the minute. But the point is, I'm a sponge, so I soak it all up. And I had a dip last week. Illustration's been really quiet. It's been a weird market for me for the last couple of years. And it makes you question a lot because I spend too much time alone in this little garden studio that I work out of, and I'm working to change that, as I mentioned. But I had a great turnaround, and I'll get into that. That's what I wanted to get into on this show. And off the back of that, I realised that the thing that underpins all of this, and it gives me both authenticity, the credentials that I sometimes feel like I lack as somebody who is only formally trained as an illustrator, but has done many, many other things that I know I'm really good at. It's not a brag. It's just recognising what you are passionate about and what you are good at doing. I'm reading The Element by Ken Robinson at the moment. It's wonderful. It's exactly about that. It's about people who have found that sweet spot, the things they can do well and the things they are passionate about. That's when people live those fulfilling kind of lives that we look at as dream lives from the outside looking in. And it's never dream lives because it always comes with the same bullshit as everybody else's lives. The fears, the quiet spells, the real life shit. It's just that for their profession, they've found something that they do that they don't consider work, that they're really good at and they're really passionate about. So it's an awesome book. Recommend that. Also going to be on the Creative Condition reading list. But it came back to me all in one big moment, which I'm going to detail. So that's what I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about brand. I realised it was all down to brand, personal brand. I'm not talking about brand guidelines. I'm not talking about a logo. I'm not talking about a website. All of that stuff is important, but all of that stuff is informed by you and everything that makes you, you. Now, this is going to be something that is an early module in my coaching process with clients, because if you don't know your personal brand, if you don't know who you are, how you behave, what frustrates you, what enlightens you, what illuminates you, and how others perceive you, where you fit in the world with authenticity, with originality, with the uniqueness that every single one of us have, then you're always going to be battling. You're always going to make decisions that are based upon the external, not the internal. And that's when you come a cropper. Now, that's what I'd begun to do. Even now, after 16 years, nearly 17 years in the game, 17 years mid-November, actually. That's full-time freelance, by the way. You still doubt it. You still go there. You still tumble down that little rabbit hole. And what pulls you back out always is the self and the trust in the self and personal brand and projecting that personal brand, even though on paper, logically, things are a bit scary. So for me, financially, it's been a quiet year. I've got more outgoings than I've ever had because I have young twins and I have a mortgage. Things I never had in those formative years when I was getting started in Manchester, where my living costs probably came in at less than 800 quid per month. Yeah, for real. In today's cost of living crisis, it's kind of hard to believe, isn't it? But that's where I was at. These days, I'm not going to give you numbers, but it's significantly higher than that. So it comes with a pressure. And under that pressure, the first thing we tend to do is abandon all of those hard-earned, hard-learned truths about ourselves, when the thing that you absolutely have to do to come out of the other side of the lull or the challenge at hand, no matter what it is and what you're doing, is to go even harder at that personal brand and trust that it will work. And in a world of logic and science, it's sometimes very hard to do that, because that then relies on feeling and intuition and instinct and emotion and social psychology, attuned to a social shared psychology, which, again, logic and this kind of prove it to me psychology in the world, which I believe is leading us astray, says don't do that. Anyway, for an opening, I'm rambling, so let's get to it. Quickly, I've firstly got, I don't have to, I want to, because they're wonderful. My founding and treasured sponsor, Illustration X, my illustration representative. They're a brilliant agency. They represent a lot of global artists these days, and they've got a bit of everything for you. So go and check out their global range of illustration and animation portfolios and everything in between. They do a lot of live work. They do a lot of experiential stuff these days: animation, GIFs, social media, illustration, and image making. Great bunch of people also doing a lot of important work for the creative industry and also beyond that. they have some fantastic initiatives that you can check out over at illustrationx.com. That's why they're a B Corp. That's why they're brilliant. That's why they've been here since day one and have stayed with me. It's a dream partnership. So check them out. I also want to ask you guys, please, if you could kindly go and take a moment to have a look at ui.org.ua, where you'll find the Ukrainian Institute. And the reason I keep shouting about these guys is because they have blown me away with their bravery, their resilience during a horrible war, especially their creative community, who continue to make beautiful work despite the threat, in the words of Olya Protasova, a previous guest on this show, the threat of bombs that could fall at any moment. Heartbreaking stuff, but their strength, their creativity, their resilience is awe-inspiring. So I would ask you guys, if you're in a position, to go and have a look at a few great designers and artists' work over at ui.org.ua and see what creative projects they've got going on. And at the very least, just stick it on social media. Share it in your story. Tweet it out there if you're still on X. Pop it on LinkedIn. Alternatively, if you're running an agency and you see some talent that you love, commission them, bring them on board, use them. They've got really great work and history and voices and brands, as we're going to get into today. So there you have it, ui.org.ua. Okay, let's have at it. I hope you've enjoyed the recent run of guest episodes, by the way. I'm coming into half term, my first half term as a parent of young twins. So parents who are listening, you'll know what that means. So I thought I'd give you a little wrap up for my current state of affairs today, talking about personal brand. I think this is going to hit home with a lot of you. I think it's going to be very valuable, because what I've learned is, and I've been pouring it into the work I'm doing with my creative coaching clients at the moment to great effect. So, all right, first of all, brand. We're not going to go too deep into what a brand is, but I'm going to call back to Max Ottignon, founder of Ragged Edge, who I interviewed live earlier this year at D&AD Festival. And it was Max who talked about brand as the thing that makes you different, because the original terminology of brand, according to Max, is from agriculture, and it was how farmers would brand their livestock so that they could tell them apart from the rest of the flock. Do you need it put in any simpler? So what does that mean? Well, as I've already discovered, that doesn't mean that you have to look different. It doesn't mean that your logo's got to be different. It doesn't mean that you've been doing different, graphic design to anybody else, different photography to anybody else, because what does that even mean? There's a whole world, an overpopulated world in this creative industry in particular, of people doing competent, polished work. But what there's not, especially since the advent of the internet, as you can find out brilliantly in Kyle Chaker's Filter World book, How Algorithms Flattened Culture, big recommend and high up on the Creative Condition reading list. He talks about this flattening of culture that's been going on, and so did Max Ottignon, and so did Erin Riley, who is the incoming global CEO of TBWA, one of the big advertising agencies. And we talked, I didn't talk, I painted live while Kyle, along with Lucia Aniello, a fantastic Emmy Award-winning director, and Kyle and Jen Costello, also of TBWA, they talked on a panel at Cannes Lions Festival earlier this year as I painted live about this algorithmic creativity, how we're all sort of working towards engagement and safety. And clients more and more are looking for guarantees that cannot be given, because creativity is an uncertain process, and that must be embraced for true creativity. And what that's resulted in, because of the over-datafication out there in the world, everybody wants guarantees on investment because it's a fucked up economy at the minute. So what you're getting is a lot of banality. You're getting a lot of work that is served to appease somebody's idea of what something should look like. There's very little fight out there. There's not a lot of balls in the work that I'm seeing. It does happen. I talked recently about the ASICS campaign, which was incredible. And that, the chain to the desk being your biggest enemy. It's a wonderful idea there. And what I'm seeing is there's a lot of great ideas still in advertising. But execution is often quite conformist, and I don't feel like the balls of those big ideas is being carried through into the creative end result. I've heard other people talking about this recently, and it got me thinking, and it's very, very true. So I'll give you a snapshot so that's branding. So it's how do you set yourself apart? So the question is, how do you set yourself apart? And I'm talking today predominantly No, do you know what? I'm not. I was going to say I'm talking predominantly to visualists, but I'm not. I'm talking to anybody who is making and creating as part of their job, because all of you have got personal brand. You can't not have personal brand. But what sets it apart is those who are aware and understand and know and embrace their personal brand. Because that's personality, that's knowing yourself, that's being at peace with yourself, and that's carrying yourself in your life to such a degree of purity that whatever you do, whatever you make is instilled with your brand. And that's what I forgot during a recent slump. So as I mentioned, apologies, swig of coffee, early morning, I'm recording this. As I mentioned, I'd lost my way a little bit. So backstory is quite a couple of years, a little bit of financial panic. You know, each month that goes by where you don't make minimum, you become a little more prone to fight, flight, or flee instinct. Fight, flight, or freeze. I told you early morning. Fight, flight, freeze. It's the evolutionary response where we get pumped with adrenaline, where we freeze on the spot because we have detected an immediate threat. Now, how many immediate threats in your kind of, well, I mean, it depends where you are, but in our kind of, I'm speaking as somebody who lives a relatively comfortable existence in the UK, working as an illustrator, as a writer. I don't specifically have to worry about war outside my house. There's not going to be any big cats roaming the streets that are looking to take me down. And I live in Salisbury. It's quite middle class. It's quite safe. So as long as I'm vigilant, the chances of me being mauled in my street by another human is relatively low. I'm quite a big bloke. I'm very lucky there. You know, nature has kind of put me in a position of advantage by being male, which is very unfortunate. You know, my wife doesn't share the same privilege. I'm also a big fella, 6'2". So I don't have to worry too much about them kind of threats. So my fight, flight, or freeze instinct tends to come from the imagined. So when you have a few quiet months of work, you imagine the next month being quiet again, and you go, oh, fuck. If the next 3 or 4 months are this quiet, I'm going to be in a bad position. So what do? In my position, I froze up. I stopped making the work I believed in. I went back to old clients, kind of got a bit desperate. I took my creative condition talk out to people in a way that wasn't fully formed. So it was ready. I've given it. I've done the workshop for D&AD. It went really well. It was brilliant. But I did that with a tried and trusted client. And I did it at a lower rate than what I intend to charge, because that was acknowledging the fact that this was still in a kind of beta mode. But they would still get, 95% of the benefits of it. It's just that it might be a little rough around the edges while I'm still filling out the process of the whole workshop. That was a fair deal. We agreed it. We did it. It was brilliant. There was a psychological safety for both client and for myself. But then, out of financial pressure, I started running out to people before I'd finished the website, before I'd got all my ducks in a row, before I had the complete inner authority to do just that. So when people didn't come back to me, which was going to happen when you take something out that's not fully formed and you don't fully believe in it, you're not operating to your own brand guidelines. Do you know what I mean? You're not going in there with your full personality, with your full confidence, with your full self, natural, pure, unique self. That's what I was doing. I had a turning point. So I got back to roots. I fine-tuned my portfolio. I thought about what work I've done that I would like to do more of, so I put that work at the top of my portfolio. I created some new work that I believed in. I put that in my portfolio. Quite quickly, by sharing that out there on LinkedIn and just being a part of things again and feeling good about being an illustrator, I pulled a couple of little projects. Nothing that was going to turn the financial tide, but something that started to chip away at it. I went and got some talks at universities because I've been doing that for a long time, and I can offer so much value to universities because I've got 17 years in the creative industry of a lived experience doing it on my terms. That's got currency. I knew that. So I took that to universities, and everyone that I approached gobbled it up. Massive compliment. Thank you very much. Had a great time in there with the students. I started to feel good again. So what I began to do was go out there, being myself, doing what I'm good at, doing what I'm passionate about. And by doing that, I was promoting my personal brand. So do you understand where this is going now? This is about you doing you. So it's not about sitting at a desk, creating a document, creating a profile, creating a logo. I've done all that stuff, but all of that stuff that I've done is reflective of who I am and my belief and my trust in that. It's a process I take my clients through before we do anything about specific creativity. First of all, you've got to be at peace with you. You've got to know yourself. And if you don't, and if you're confused, that's what we're going to work on before we do anything else. We're going to look at your mental health. We're going to look at your relationship with nature. We're going to look at your brand. We're going to look at how you're behaving out there and how are you projecting. Because if that's not right, you aren't going to turn any tides. You aren't going to get the next job that you really want. So it's really important. So I've made a list of the kind of things that constitute a brand, and I had this project that really turned the tide. I can't say what the project is yet because until it's out there, we just can't talk. Respect for the client and all that, because it's under it's not an NDA, but it's that sort of thing. Now, this project is hand-picked. It was after about 3 or 4 weeks of being back out there, putting myself out there with some confidence again, that this project came in. And this art director emailed me one day and he said, Ben, I have got a fucking cracker of a project for you. So first of all, yes, project, money. Second of all, oh, okay, why is it suited to me? Read the brief, went, oh shit, this is amazing. This story is incredible. And what you want me to do is perfect. It's great art direction. It is attuned with who I am and my personal brand. But I wasn't quite there yet. So the first pass I sent over and the response from the art director, and I think I knew it in my heart of hearts, but because I'd been in a bit of a lull and my confidence was slightly subpar, there was a little too much fear in my first rendition. He came back, he said, okay, this is interesting. There's a few things that we can look at as positives, but you need to let the dogs out. And in that one line, I knew it spoke to my instinct. I knew that I hadn't let rip. I knew that I hadn't done this project justice. And I knew that I hadn't stamped my personal brand on it. But his words, you need to let the dogs out, went, shit, yes, I am Ben Talon. This is how I've built a career. This rawness, this energy that comes through my work, it's not contrived. It never was. It was always a very pure expression of who I am, the way I see the world, the way I carry myself, and what I want to express in this world at this time right now. And it came back. So I got back to the desk. I got music on that motivated me. I got the brushes out. I ripped things up. I went bananas on this project. And when I sent it back, it blew the art director's head off. I was happy with it. I had confidence. I sent it back and went, have that. And he went, wow, okay, yes, we're getting there. This is amazing. This is really great. This captures everything. And the big difference was that inner authority. He'd helped to give me it. He brought the confidence back by saying, let the dogs out. That's all it needed, that one line, because that captured everything that was rushing around, gushing around in my instinct that I knew deep down, but didn't have the confidence to execute. I was playing with fear a little too much. I was playing and pandering to the expected. So I wanted to kind of bring that to you guys and encourage you to think about what your personal brand is. That's what I want to do today. I'm not interested in what you do. I am, of course. I'm interested in what all my listeners do. But do you get what I'm saying? I'm not interested whether you're a designer, whether you're a graphic designer, whether you're an art director, whether you're an artist, whether you're a copper, a firefighter. It doesn't matter, because you all have a personal brand. And I want to know what it is, because that's what's fascinated me about humans since the day since I was consciously aware as a kid. I've been drawn to rich characters for as long as I can remember, because I love storytelling. Storytelling underpins everything I've ever been interested in, from books to films to media to the people I knock around with, to the people I'm attracted to the people I dislike, to what I love and hate about humanity. So when I use that in all of my work, because the person that I'm dealing with in that project that I can't talk about yet is a wild card, is a really fascinating human with a wild story, and I love it. And to get that and bring my personality to that and find the aspect of what I do that works with who that person is. That is where the joy is in everything that I do, in the fiction I write, in the non-fiction I write. If you've read my books, you will know that my fiction is very much about exploring the underbelly of the human condition. If you've read my non-fiction, you'll know that it's led by my adoration and fascination with creativity. But at the core of that creativity is the human condition, always. A lot of what I write about is about the human condition, about common denominators. So no matter what you do, we're all bound by our personal brand, and that's what makes it sing to other people. That's what gives it that attractive edge. So think about any creative that you like. Right now, off the tip of my tongue, Mr. Bingo springs to mind. Damien Hirst, Tracy Emin. I'm a big lover of the YBA movement because that, in terms of personal brand and in terms of just letting it all out there, they were naughty people who were doing something really raw that rattled a lot of cages, but was brilliant, and it's why it stood the test of time and it still feels current and modern today. Look at Tomato. I had Graham Wood on the show going back a little while now, but Tomato's work in the 90s has never aged. It feels as fresh now as it did then. So does the work of Stefan Sagmeister. I know I'm reeling off a few designers here, but that's because it's the field that I'm in. If you want to go there in other fields, look at authors like Chuck Palahniuk. They'll never age. They'll always be fresh and contemporary because work that is pure, just like those first albums of any band you can think of that has maybe not aged so well. Think of Definitely Maybe by Oasis. Think of Stone Roses' debut album, two of the greatest debut albums of all time. They've never aged, and they inspire people today as much as they did in 1994 and 1989, whatever year the Stone Roses come out. And that's because they were of personal brand with such purity that it becomes timeless. And that's what you need to be striving for too. So in terms of that personal brand, it is these things. It is how you carry yourself. So all of my visual and written work, if you know me and you pick up a book or you look at an illustration, it screams Ben Talon. My best work does that to the nth degree. It is how you feel. Your personal brand is how you feel. So if you're frustrated, if you're sad and melancholy, you're still on brand. But you have to use that. You have to either learn to manage that frustration or melancholy or channel it into your work in a way that is cathartic, in a way that lives. And it will still be you. It will still be your brand. Your frustrations. Maybe you've got some shitty family dynamics going on. Maybe you've fallen out with your parents. Maybe you can't stand your sister. I don't know what that looks like for each of you. But it's still a part of what you should be doing. It's still a part of your voice. Your pain is a part of your brand. And I know, and what I'm absolutely not saying is that when you struggle or when you have some adversity that you should sit down and make a pretty picture. No, it's not about that. It's about using the journey and the story of your life in how you carry yourself moving forward. There's a whole chapter in the Creative Condition book about adversity because it's one of the most powerful tools in creativity. How many albums that you love can you think of that were written at a personal time of a troubled time for a certain music artist? Look at the Libertines. Case in point, they were a chaotic shambles. They were an absolute a drug-addled mess. But they were making work that was pure to them, and they were doing it in a way that was for them. And I'm not saying go out and, do all that stuff, but the negative emotion spectrum is one of the most powerful things you have for a personal brand. It's also your bliss. What is your bliss? Do you know? You might not know, and if you don't, you need to go out and you need to start following it right away. So the American author and educator Joseph Campbell speaks of your bliss as just being your joy. What do you do if the world stopped now? If capitalism crashed, what would you do for joy? Who are the people you would be with? How would you spend your time? What are the social circles you'd do that in? All of those questions are what you should be spending time thinking about and observing about yourself. And you should be moving towards those things. And now a few episodes on this podcast, I talked about the vision. So if you haven't heard that episode, go back and pay attention to the vision. Because if you create your utopian vision and you work backwards, you will find themes in there that resonate and tell you things about your personal brand. They tell you the things that might seem unattainable because it's this dream scenario and you might not have time to do that. You might not have money to do that. I most certainly don't have those things, time or money. However, there were things I found by doing that vision exercise that I could fine. I could move towards just in different ways. Very interesting way to look at it. So your bliss, my bliss, now, I had this conversation with some friends on the dog walk, and it was about how now, brown cow, how now in your, whatever you are, so the group of friends I was talking with, we ranged, one friend was 40, I'm 41, the other friend was 49, and we, in this sort of interesting bracket of life where a lot of people come a cropper because suddenly all of the possibility of life in front of us, some of it's in the rearview mirror and not everything is ahead of us anymore, and that provokes deep introspection. So my question to the guys on this one morning's dog walk was, how do you find your bliss now? And by bliss I mean the stuff that just fills you with a pure magic. So when I was a kid, going to watch Leeds United was a fucking supernatural experience. When I walked up those steps and saw that pitch under those floodlights or sunshine and saw those players warming up, it filled me with a feeling that language just cannot express. It filled me with pure bliss. That's the word, isn't it? I also got that feeling from going to Leeds Met University to look at X-Men cards and spend all of my hard-earned pocket money on one card when I was collecting them, because I was with my tribe. I was with all the other nerds. I was immersed in comic book storytelling. And I used to wake up on those Saturday mornings at 5, 6 o'clock and couldn't get back to sleep because I was so giddy, so wound tight about that experience and being with those people and doing those things that day, that it was amazing. It didn't matter that I was knackered and I had barely any sleep because I was in love with that thing. My question to the guys was, how do you get that in your 40s? Because Leeds United, I still doggedly go and watch them, but I don't get that same rush. I get little glimpses of it here and there, but it can't be the same because childhood is a magical time. Looking at those X-Men cards, it gives me a little sense of nostalgia, but if I've given them to my little lad Frank, who loves comic books, I don't want them anymore. Because they're not doing that same thing for me anymore. So I'm not going to hold them because I might be able to sell them one day for 50 quid. No, I give them to him. They're giving him that magic now, so he deserves them. So I'm giving them to him. But what gives me it now? And for a while I was wrestling with that. I thought, is there anything that gives me that now? And there is. And it sounds really corny, but it's been with my family. It's lying on the floor with my dog, scratching his belly. And it's, above all else, learning. Learning has become my addiction. That sounds ridiculous, especially for somebody who got a double F in science at school and did not want to be in that school. But that's on school, not on me. School was and is all messed up in terms of the way it educates human beings. It's all to feed capitalism. It's not about fulfillment or teaching people to be themselves. However, now I've found a cause in my life, which is creativity. So reading far and wide and studying and learning about the human condition, that's what I want to do. Any moment of time I get now, I pick up my book and I'm in that zone again. I feel nerdishly excited. And it's a different form of it because I'm a 41-year-old man now, so I'm never going to get that same sort of glee in the exact same way. And nor should I, because that's what's beautiful and unique about childhood. But the closest I can get to it, my current bliss, is about making a positive difference in this world and helping people to understand their creativity and be creative. That's my personal brand, my bliss. Maybe that's the biggest factor of all of it. So what's your bliss? It's just something to think about, because you need to know if you're going to fully communicate your personal brand and what you're best positioned in the world to bring people. Your flow. What gives you flow states? When I sit there and I've got the right soundtrack on and I'm drawing or I'm writing, again, it's another form of that bliss. It's amazing. I'm immersed in that feeling of progression and development and creating. Your curiosity, your personal brand, it massively hinges on your curiosity, because if you're not curious, and I'm not talking about studying or independent work outside of your job, I'm talking about everything you do. If you're a graphic designer who's working in a company and feels like they might not have creative freedom or they might be better off doing something else, you need to work out, A, what that something else is, but B, why you are not using your curiosity in your job. Because there might be opportunities. I see so much technically sound, competent work that is fucking boring. Sorry if that upsets, but it's true. The sea of same that I refer to is the trendy type, the trendy style of reel. It's this algorithmic creativity that everyone's doing because they think it's what is expected of them by the industry. If that's the hot new type and you've used it well, that doesn't equate to good graphic design. That equates to a single use of typography. That's all it is. It's not creativity. Creativity and personal brand is about your curiosity. So you could use that same type in the same way. If you've applied your curiosity and you've done it for the right reasons that serve an idea, then it could well be brilliant graphic design. But curiosity is the difference. So if you're not curious and you're not following that curiosity in your job, chances are the work is going to be technically competent, but it's not going to move any needles. It's not going to move anyone. It's not going to speak to anyone because it's not got your brand in it. It's your desire. And to go back to curiosity, right, so I think it's really important that you don't give all the answers. So you don't have to justify why you've used that type. It doesn't have to move the needle. It doesn't have to change the world. But if it's got your curiosity in it, that will be resonant to the end user. It will be resonant to your creative director, your superior. They will feel your curiosity and therefore it will be alive. Now do you see the difference? That's when it's got personal brand in it. Chances are you won't want to use that same font if you use your curiosity and personal brand, because your lived experience, your story, your brand will demand a different solution because you've been curious and you've had the balls to use that brand to step outside of the flock and be noticed and be different. So again, it can be open-ended work. You don't have to be, a radical member of the YBA to use personal brand. You can be using the same fonts as people. You can be attacking the same brief. But if you bring your lived childhood, your love of being in certain places, being with certain people and doing certain things, it will sing and it will be different. Your brand is also your desire. What do you desire in the world? What turns you on? It's like, what makes you want to make in the world? Because me, last week, after that turning point, after being told to let the dogs out, I started making personal work, and it's been a while. And I loved it, and it's different. And I'm not bothered that people are probably going to look at it and go, whoa, okay, what is that? That's different, that's new. I'm not worried about whether there's a commercial market out there for it, because there will be by default. Because my brand and my new curiosity and following my bliss, because I also get that same feeling of bliss when I'm working on a composition and a piece of work that feels alive, will sing. And you can't know who's watching. You can't know who is looking at your portfolio, who is going to see that work. And truth be told, I don't care, because whoever does see it and whoever gets moved by it are the people I want to work with. And it will happen. You have to trust it. You have to put it out there with personal brand, and it will happen for you. Your brand is also your instinct. Don't overthink it. Make work, rip things, get physical, get off the screen, make work, do stuff, practice scarcity. That's another little tip for you, and it's something I give my coaching clients. Practice scarcity. If you rely on a certain tool and all of your work is made with a certain tool, throw it in the bin. Try making that same work without that tool and see what happens. You might get some different work that is still on brand, because how can it not be on brand? Because you're making work as you, for you. But if you try it without your go-to tool, see what happens. I was drawing with cigarette filter tips last week for this particular brief that I mentioned earlier, because I pick litter like nobody's business, because it really makes me angry when I find litter in the streets, because this planet is drowning in plastic, and I spend a lot of my dog walk with a little carrier bag picking up litter, just because it's just what I do. I did it in Manchester, I'll do it here, I don't do it everywhere I go, because sometimes if I'm walking through London and it's just fucking smattered in litter, it's kind of pointless. I'll be there all day, and I can't do this on my own. But I do it in my local area because I want to keep my local parks clean. I want to keep my street clean. I want to show other people that you can make a difference by doing that little thing. Point is, I picked up a little unopened box of cigarette Swan filter tips, pocketed them, thought, yeah, there we go. There's a bunch of potential drawing tools. And there they sat on my desk for about 4 months. And this job comes along and I thought, oh shit, this is a good opportunity to try those filter tips out. And it made a lovely mark full of my brand. Again, I was just doing it, trying it differently. I put my pens and my brushes down, what I always work with, and thought, let's try some sticks, let's try some cigarette filter tips. And actually, none of them made it into the final brief, but I liked what I'd made with them. They just didn't happen to be right for this brief. But I had to find out, and that was a part of my personal brand also. Your instinct is a part of your personal brand, your imagination. Follow your imagination, use your imagination. I can't tell you how many designers that I've met and that I know that don't use their imagination. They're not being creative, they're being drafts people. It's design labour sometimes. When you're just moving type around a page without curiosity, without personal brand, without following bliss, then it's not really being creative, is it? It's just making. It's just putting things in place. The same way a builder might just move bricks around a building site, except when they get a brief by an architect and they have to use their creativity, then it's different. The bricks are illuminated, just like your typography or whatever it might be. Again, irrelevant at this point. But you have to use imagination, otherwise, why are you doing this? Are you just serving somebody else's bad ideas? It was Andy Sandoz, who was the president of D&AD at the time, who said to me, where is the banshee whale? And he was speaking of the fact that we have access to practically all of human history and all these resources and all this knowledge. And yet we're just seeing so much work that is like for like. And it's probably because we are exposed to too much. But so many people are just seeing so much and not giving themselves time to explore their ideas and their own brand, that they're just going on Pinterest and Google Images and finding the thing that looks competent that will do. And that's how AI has become such a threat, because it's being fed with all this algorithmic creativity and it's generating much of the same, albeit in a, oil painting style or whatever. And you have to go back to that definition of Chat GPT that someone described. It's a parrot that swallowed the internet. You don't write with Chat GPT. If you do, you're not writing. You're regurgitating somebody else's shit to tick a box. Where's your personal brand? Go look at the work of Nick Asbury. That's writing. He's an awesome writer. Works for a lot of advertising and design clients and copywriting, and he's absolutely brilliant, and his books are awesome and full of soul, on brand. And this is why Nick is successful and why Nick is in work. I'm telling you now. Sean Ryder, Happy Mondays frontman. I spoke to him on this show, and I give it some silly title back then, episode X something or other. But if you just look up Sean Ryder, Creative Condition, listen to the episode. It's a bit annoying because he kept tapping on the table and I didn't want to break his flow. So unfortunately, you've got a little bit of noise interference on that one, which some people kicked off about. But it's still worth listening to. And Sean said to me on that show that, and I love this, and I use this in my talks at the minute, but he said that when they were starting out, people were saying to him in the Happy Mondays, you lads are making music in warehouses in Salford and wearing cagoules and anoraks and Adidas shoes, it's not going to work out there. You need to be more like Culture Club. You need to find your brand. And it's an awesome brand story, because Sean said to me, we told him to fuck off, and a few years later, you couldn't be in a band if you weren't wearing an anorak. I love that so much, because Culture Club is beautiful. Culture Club, that's an example of a brand, utterly pure brand that worked. But can you imagine Sean Ryder and the rest of the Happy Mondays, or Oasis for that matter, rolling out dressed up like Culture Club? It'd be disgraceful. It'd be ridiculous, because it's so off-brand for them. They were lads who'd grown up on Manchester council estates, who left school early, particularly Sean, massively dyslexic and neurodivergent, he now understands. But as he said back then, it just wasn't an available thing. So he got told he was stupid and he left school feeling stupid at 14. But thankfully for Sean and the Happy Mondays, there was Tony Wilson and Factory Records, who saw the potential and the energy and the brand of the way they carried themselves, the way they behaved in their day-to-day lives, the way they spoke, the language they used. He said, go in that record studio and do that. And Sean Ryder said to me that they were nowhere near ready making a record, But Tony Wilson saw as much, if not more, value in the fact that they were a little gang of ruffians and they had that energy and that creativity than they ever would have in their music. And it was that brand that led them to working out the music. And they did it so untrained and so purely that they stood out in their generation and became a timeless household band. And I go back to what I said earlier. The Happy Mondays have not aged, will not age, nor will Oasis, because they did it on brand for them. Again, not logos, not how they made their music, not what their records were called, sounded like. But I'll tell you what, bear with me. If we're talking about on brand, I can never remember it off the top of my head, but I'm going to give you the Happy Mondays debut album title. It's ridiculous, but it is Shaun Ryder to a T. Let's have a look. But when Shaun said that about anoraks, he just hit such a point, and it wasn't that anyone else should go out wearing anoraks or anybody else should go out looking like Culture Club. It's like, what's your thing? What are you doing? Where are you from? Who are you? And why does it matter? That was the point. So here we go. So the debut album by the Happy Mondays on Factory Records is Squirrel and G-Man, 24-hour party people, plastic face, can't smile, brackets, white out. Have that. That's an album title. That came from the brain of Shaun Ryder and all them drugs in the late 80s in Manchester, being Shaun Ryder only the way he could. Probably going to wrap it up here. I think that sums up everything about brand. So what's your brand? Who are you? Find that. What do you want to shout about? What frustrates you? What's your bliss? What's your curiosity? What's your feeling? How do you carry yourself? How do you speak? What can't you do? What do you hate about yourself? Own it, because there's value in it. That's what a brand is. That's what I've remembered in the last week. I'm cooking with gas this week. I'm feeling good about what I do. I'm still skint, work's still quiet, but I am operating with forward motion on brand for me. What's yours? How do you find your forward motion? Get in touch and we'll have a chat if you want. It's the kind of stuff I'm doing in my coaching. I'm off for half term this week, but drop me a note. Listen to this podcast. Drop me a note. Let me know. I'd love to see what your brand is. And if you're not, I'll happily tell you if you're not on brand. But I can only know that by getting to know you. This is the point. So anyway, I'm not going down that road again, but there you have it. Big thank you to the founding sponsor of the show, illustrationx.com, for their global range of illustration and animation portfolios, and also their brilliant Trend X report, which is reporting from the front line of the illustration market on trends and everything else. ui.org.ua, please help out the Ukrainian Institute. The Creative Condition book is out now. The website is coming along. It's looking really good. It's the bones of it are in place now. I think you're going to love it. We've got a massive reading list in there, got all the podcasts in its own podcast section, got the coaching options. It's really coming together as a business, and I'm so excited because it's what? On brand. Yeah, I said it. Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening. I hope this has made some sense. If it hasn't, drop me a note and we can have a conversation. I love you all for listening. If you get a chance, please tell a friend. That's the biggest thing I ask of you. Tell a friend about this podcast if you enjoyed it, and it will mean the world to me because it will help it to grow. On top of that, if you get a chance, please do leave a little rating, review, or subscription. That also helps. Appreciate all of it, guys. Have a great week. I'll chat to you soon.